Merhabalar, herkese iyi akşamlar. İonia'daki son araştırmalarla ilişkili Ege Üniversitesi Arkeoloji Bölümünün Arkeoloji haberinde desteğiyle birlikte olduğu Sempozyum'un ikinci oturumundayız. İkinci oturumumuzda 3 tane konuşmacımız var. 2 konuşmacımız Efesos üzerine. Efesos 125 yılı aşkın süredir uzun bir gelenek dahilinde sistematik arkeolojik araştırmalarını sürdürmekte. İlk konuşmacımız Martin Steskal olacak. Sabine Ladtstätter ile birlikte aslında sunması gerekiyordu ama Sabine aramızda değil maalesef bu gece. İnşallah bundan sonraki konuşmalarda kendisini burada ağırlarız. Ondan sonra Alexandra von Miller konuşacak. Efesos'taki arkaik dönem yerleşimleri ve kalıntıları üzerine bir konuşma olacak. Özellikle odaklanacağı nokta Tetragonos-Agora'sı ve Panayır'daki buluntular üzerine olacak. Kendisinin 2019 yılında yazmış olduğu çok geniş kapsamlı bir kitap var bu konuda. Sanırım ondan da bahsedecektir içinde. Onun ardından rotamız birazcık farklı bir yöne geçecek. Efes'ten Millet Yarımadası'na doğru ilerleyeceğiz. François Bertemes bize Tavşan Adası'ndaki bronz çağ yerleşimi hakkında çok önemli bulgular sunacak. Çok kilit noktada 3 konuşmacımızın da heyecanla konuşmalarını dinleyeceğiz. For those of you who could not follow me up in Turkish, I would like to welcome you all and thank you very much for joining us here. Now we'll have the second session of Ionia webinar, which mainly focuses on the latest research conducted by prestigious archaeologists. And we'll first begin with 2 lectures on Ephesus. The first one will be presented by Martin Steskal, which was prepared together with Sabine Ladtstätter, of course. Unfortunately, Sabine could not join us today. We send her our best wishes and hope to host her at another lecture. And following Martin, we'll be listening Alexandra von Miller. She will be speaking on Tetragonos-Agora and Panayır'da. She will mainly focus on the archaic settlement and remains of the important excavation. She had recently written an enormous book, which is very important for people, especially working on art. Sonra son konuşmamız, oturumun son konuşması François Bertemes'e ait. François Bertemes bize Tavşan Adası'ndaki bronz çağ yerleşimi hakkında bilgiler sunacak. Konuşmasının başlığı Tavşan Adası, Millet Yarımadası'nda bir bronz çağı liman yerleşimi. Now I'll hand over to François Bertemes. He will be speaking on Tavşan Adası, a Bronze Age harbor site on the Malaysian Peninsula. Yes, François.
Yeah, iyi akşamlar. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. Special thanks go to Hüseyin Çevisoglu, of course. I just want to present you some of our results on Tavşan Adası. Tavşan Adası is a small island north of Panormos, the ancient port of Didima, on the southern west coast of Asia Minor, with about 180 meters in length and a width of about 90 meters. So a very small island. From the beach of the Orman-Kampe, you can reach the shallow island, which protrudes about 6.5 meters from the sea level at its highest point after a crossing of around 250 meters. Shoals on the narrowest point between the coast and the island indicate that in earlier times, the two were connected by a narrow tongue of land, which was adjoined by two sandy bays to the north and south, which offered seafarers protection from winter storm. This is exactly the kind of harbor situations we know from South Aegean harbors. Here you see the depiction of the miniature fresco from the West House in Akrotiri, which shows you exactly the same situation as we have here on Tavcan Adası. Centrally located in the islands of the Dodecanese, the location with its two natural harbors offered excellent conditions for the establishment of a logistics center within the Minoan Southeast Aegean trade and communication network. Just an overview of the communication possibilities by seafarers during the Bronze Age. The islet has only been mentioned twice in the literature. We owe a first plan of the island to a survey by Chukrutul in the 1980s. He was also the first to show characteristic prehistoric material, including Chalcolithic and early Bronze Age, but as well as a few Middle Bronze Age pottery forms with equivalents in the material from Miletus 3 and 4. Unfortunately, the significance of this publication was not properly recognized, which is why it was usually not taken into account in contributions on Minoan influence in Caria and Ionia. Tavcan Adası is only listed again in 1999 in Lohmann's publication of his survey results. In 2005, when I first visited the site, except for a few spots, the surface was densely overgrown with scrub and some olive trees. A few trampling paths were probably due to the sporadic visits by seaside holidaymakers. Already from the beach, we saw a cultural layer package of about 1.5 meters in height in the eastern profile. In several places, mighty walls built in dry construction were visible, from which individual stones were already fallen down on the shore zone. The core of the island consists of a ballard formation of the Upper Miocene. Soft, hardly compacted clayey alluvions at the level of the shore zone are overlain by harder conglomerate rocks, which in turn rise to the surface in some places, but were mostly covered by cultural layers up to 2 meters thick. Numerous rolled stones and sherds on the shore zone and in the water indicate that winter storms interfere considerably with the archaeological substance and that the site is seriously endangered in the long term. From 2006 to 2014, systematic annual excavations took place within the framework of the Didyma project, led by the German Archaeological Institute. For the first time, the fieldwork on Tavcan Adası and the current analysis of the finds and findings lay the foundation which contribute to the clarification of the little studied early, middle, and the initial late Bronze Age of Ionia and Caria before the so-called Mycenaean impact. The South Aegean cultural and economic orientation of the Turkish southern Aegean coast and the adjacent islands of the Dodecanese is emphasized in the definition what we call nowadays as Saskar cultural region. This means it's the abbreviation for the Southeast Aegean, Southwest Coastal Anatolian region as defined by Tula Marchetu and Salvatore Vitale. This Saskar region is clearly distinguished from Anatolia as well as from the Troad further north, whose sphere of influence reaches the Mykale and has close connections to the South Aegean cultural evolution. So here you see a map of the thickness of the layers, which we were able to make after a huge amount of drillings we made. So you see that parts of the island are rocky, no layers are left, and there are only the reddish part which have layers of about 2 meters thickness. These are the sectors we have excavated. So we have 3 main sectors, LN1 in the eastern part of the island, LN2 in the southern part of the island, and LN3 in the northern part of the island. The sequence or cultural sequence is, as you can see here, we have 7 different sequences. We have TA7 starting with the Osmanic period, but no layer, just sporadic finds. We have TA6, which is an early Byzantine period. Then we have an hiatus. Then comes TA5, which is an archaic Hellenistic period. A new hiatus occurs. Then TA4, which can be divided in 4A and 4B, which is late Minoan, Bronze Age A, and early late Bronze Age. And finally, we have TA3A and B, which is Middle Bronze Age, and another hiatus. And finally, the lowest layers we have on the island are from the early Bronze Age. That is the stratigraphy, but we also find Chalcolithic sherds, but not within the layer. Until now, we have not found a layer from the Chalcolithic period, but the Chalcolithic material is mixed up with in the layers of the early Bronze Age. Also, so finally, we have only displaced material from the late Chalcolithic period. Here you have an overview of the stratigraphic situation on the northern slope of the island, the Alan 3, where you can see the stratigraphy, which is very well visible. I just will give you a short overview of all our sequences, all our layers. First of all, a coin deposit from the Osmanic period. We found 2 coins from Suleiman the Great, which have been lost there for sure. Then the next one is a little bit more important. It's TA6. The most recent settlement activity is limited to a small area in the east of the island. The architectural remains indicate a loose development with small buildings, including a small church in Alan 1. South of this, 3 graves without grave goods were uncovered. An early Byzantine well excavated in area D18 now carries seawater. At the time of its use, the island was therefore still connected to the land, and fresh water came out at this point. Thus, we have a terminus postquem for the postulated tectonical induced subsidence of the coast. So here you have the graves and the stone-walled well. And just to show you some of the material of the early Byzantine period, we have candelabra rests, we have coins, we have lamps, we have all kind of characteristic pottery from this period. Concerning TA5, in addition to sparse, probably displaced material, evidence of a settlement of the Archaic period was only found in 2010 in the outermost east of the island. Remains of a wall, a huge displaced marble threshold, a pit with a Vogelschale, among other things. Here's some shirts. And a captain's funeral stele with a depiction of a prora. Now let's turn to the Bronze Age, TA4. The most recent Bronze Age deposits on the island are characterized by a package of reddish-brown layers. In LN1, we have 70 up to 18-meter large northeast-southwest oriented building, which was erected in the western part of LN1 directly on the bedrock, and in the eastern part on a leveled TA3 layer. The foundation walls were 60 centimeters wide, built with several layers of stones, followed by only partially preserved mud bricks. In the west and north, the building was accompanied by small alleys, while in the south a larger street leads from the hinterland up to the peninsula. Here you can see the status in 2011. You can already see that there are two phases. I just have uploaded here the older one, which shows you a characteristic, I would call them townhouse of the late Middle Minoan period, as we know them from Crete or the Cycladic islands. In LN2, we found no TA4 layers, and therefore no architecture is left, but we have a number of pits dug into the TA3 layers. They contained a huge number of finds from TA4. And the material evidence from TA4 is very uniform. Anatolian elements are missing almost completely, while the local ceramic forms are embedded within the spectrum of the Saska region, and thus can be called Minoan in the broadest sense. In addition to imports, particularly from the Messara and from eastern Crete, imports from the Cyclades and the Dodecanese occur, as has been shown by Tobias Neuser in his PhD. These forms have not only been imported, but the major part has been adopted and produced locally. The material fits perfectly within the spectrum of Middle Minoan 3b, Late Minoan 1a on Crete, and especially with Miletus 3b and 4a. TA4 was probably destroyed by a tsunami event following the Terra event, which led to the abandonment of the settlement. In contrast to Miletus 4b, any reference to Late Minoan 1b or Mycenaean activities is missing on our island. This means that the site has not been reused after the maritime destruction. So just to give you a small overview of our material from TA4, a huge number of conical cups. We have also a huge number of large groined or ribbed storage amphora, which are very similar to those of Akrotiri. As you can see over here, we have a huge number of Late Minoan 1a type vessel forms, partially imports. Here, for example, what is very characteristic are bowls with a wide flat rim, or we have this kind of charcoal showers, and we have cups with the handles attached on the inner part of the rim, which means that they are from the Saska region, and we have other ones where the handle is attached on the outer part of the rim. Normally they are called, are seen as being South Aegean, and we have handles coming out directly from the top of the rim. We have a huge number of painted pottery. The different styles which are common in the Saska region can be found on Tafta and others. Also, we have a considerable amount of imports from Crete, the lower row on the right, for example, or from the Cyclades above on your right, and from somewhere we do not know exactly where this kind of pottery on the left has been produced. It's absolutely beautiful, and this polychromic representation, until now we don't have any indication where it does come from. So we have imports, as for example this ribbled ware, but often they have been just copied, as you can see here with these shirts. We have also of course cooking pots in the local style with a vertical handle, and in the South Aegean style with an horizontal handle. We have also cooking pots which have been imported from the South Aegean. And what is also interesting, we have imitations from Egyptian stone vessels, as you can see here on this slide. What is a very, I would say, outstanding find is our rock crystal seal with the representation of a sailing boat, typical longboat for the Minoan culture. Until now, only 7 similar pieces are known. Most of them come from the antiquarian markets. Only one is coming from the palace of Knossos. And other indications of sealing here, a soapstone seal with the representation of a jumping animal. And some linear art pot marks. I cannot go into details, but just to show you another interesting find, this spindle hall with a jumping athlete, a type which is very known from the South Aegean. I have here just put some analogies. And we have found late weights as they are used in South Aegean. We have indications for metal processing, this elephant type pestle for crushing the core. We have slags, we have stone anvils, we have grinding stones, and of course the material which have been, or the artifacts which have been produced as scissors, needles, and so on, or pins, daggers. These two type of pins we see here have exactly parallels in Fourni near Achanes on Crete. Other raw materials which were in move in this large communication network are, of course, is of course obsidian from Mileto, from Melos. We have rock crystals, we have achat, we have, and that is very interesting. I do not know where it has been imported. Rock salt and huge pieces, as you can see here, and a huge number of murex snails. Most of them are crushed, which is an indication that they have been used for coloring textiles. So this might also have been something which have been produced here on Tafcan Adası. In conclusion to TA4, TA4 is an integral part of the broader Minoan world, as for the most of the Bronze Age sites in the Saska region. But the grade of minoization is similar to Miletus or Trianda. We suppose that the population consisted partially of South Aegean immigrants and local Saska people. Now, concerning TA3, the second Bronze Age layer consists of a grayish earth with a huge amount of chalk particles. In LN2, rests of several large rooms and courtyards of one or more buildings were found, with their southern part eroded by the sea. Due to stone robbers, major parts of the walls were missing. The building features allow us to distinguish two main phases. The interiors of the younger phase were filled up with stones, earth, and fragments of burnt mud bricks, and disturbed by younger pits and stone robbery. An irregular stone pavement marks a central courtyard around which the large storage yards were placed. in a courtyard in the eastern part of LN2 a ceramic kiln and indication for metallurgical activities, for example, a mold for a labyrinth, came to light. The most western room provides evidences for textile processing. So here you can see this ceramic kiln from the South Aegean type. Similar kiln has been found in Miletus also. The material evidence, fragments of Camarasware, the spectrum of cups, bowls, and plates from TA3, and most of the other ceramic forms are similar to those of the older Palatial period in Crete, but most of them were produced locally and are typical for the Saska region. But at this time, however, this region is still more regional. Inland Anatolian elements, in contrary, are rare. Compared to Miletus, the high proportion of fine wares is amazing. Our material matches perfectly with Middle Minoan 2, Middle Minoan 3a on Crete, or Miletus 3a. Just to give you an overview of some of our finds, of course, we don't have as beautiful imports, Camaras imports, as you can see above on your right, but our shirts are very small, but they are there. And a lot of typical bowls imitating metal forms. For example, I just have to add here the ring handle, and you see that this form is a typical metallic form. And also for this bowl, what is interesting, they even imitated the rivets, which in the original have been used to fix the handle. On your left, you see an analogy from Malia. And this kind of rivet knobs are very typical for the whole material of this period. And for metal processing, something very interesting is the mold of labyrinth, a double X, which has been produced here on Tafcan Adase. The mold has not been imported, as you can see. By processing the mold, the stone broke, and so they were not able to finish the inner part, so it's not smoothed already. And the stone was used for other purposes. On the right, you see an analogy from Phyllacopy of the late Minoan 1a period, indicating textile production. A huge number of these special Minoan loom weights and a huge number of spindle wheels and the Murex nails I already have pointed out. So finally, the oldest layer, the early Bronze Age layer, it's only approximately 40 centimeter thick. They rest directly on the rock in the northern area. The archaeological material can be connected with the phases 2b and 3 of the early Bronze Age, Anatolian early Bronze Age. In LN2, rests of an early Bronze Age megaron were excavated, while in Alan 3, several smaller buildings were built on the terraced hillside. The walls were smaller as the walls from the Middle Bronze Age and the Late Bronze Age. They had only 40 centimeters, and the foundations consisted of a layer, just one layer of smaller stones. The archaeological evidence, a small number of Cycladic imports, including the fragment of marble calice from Paros, obsidian from Melos, and some Cycladic pottery, have to be taken as a sign that already in the early Bronze Age, Tafcan Adase was well embedded in a far-reaching communication network. Even so, in contrast to the younger periods of the Western Anatolian character of most of the remains is very apparent. The red slipped and red slightly polished or burnished wares are most frequent. Just to give you an overview, here a very interesting deposition, foundation deposit. This kind of depas was put in this ugly jug or ugly cup. to fix in, they had to take off one handle. Yeah, it's a finding situation. We have a huge number of this kind of bell beakers, I would call them. Rania Kuka loves to call them Samos beaker. What is very interesting, you can see over here, there is a hole on the bottom, so you could fix it with on your ceinture and taking it with you when you go to have a drink with your friends. So the typical red slipped ware, eggshells as imports, eggshell form jugs as imports from the Cyclades. And here's the Calis imported, and as you can see over here, the material within these early Bronze Age layers is mixed up with chalcolithic material. So we are able to see that there has been a chalcolithic period on the island, but until now we don't have any layer, and can tell you nothing about the architecture. We have indications for metal processing, and we are embedded also in this typical early Bronze Age white systems. And finally, yes, to give to just X our TA2 on the level of early Bronze Age 3. With the transition period into the Middle Bronze Age. So it's only the younger part of the early Bronze Age we have found over here. And to finish, I just want to thank the whole Tafcan Adase team, with over years produced a lot of archaeologists who now works on different places, but I want also to thank the German Research Council for founding us, Gerda Henkel Stiftung, and the German Archaeological Institute, and the university. Work in progress, meaning that we are publishing our work. One first book has already been published in 2020. It's about the architecture. It was the PhD of Michael Rechter. Another PhD will be published 2021. It's about the lithic material from Katja Focke, and so on and so on. So work in progress. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, François Bertemes. It was an amazing talk. We learned so much from Tavşan Adası, and I think we'll keep on learning more. And we will be looking forward to having your new publications on this site. And it was very important for all of us who are working on the Aegean part of Anatolia to see early remains of an artisan district. So we're talking about not a small scale of industrial area, but a large scale perhaps. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz François Bertemes. Çok önemli buluntuların ele geçtiği bir merkez hakkında bize detaylı bilgiler, zengin buluntularla süslediği bilgileri aktardı. Şimdi sorularınızı yavaş yavaş sormak istiyorum. Evet, Hüseyin hocamız, Hüseyin Cevizoğlu'nun bir sorusu var. Kendisine sorduğu soru Mısır, Efes'teki Mısır kültleri ile ilişkili bir sorusu var. Acaba yeni bulgular var mıdır diye soruyor. So our first question comes from Hüseyin Cevizoğlu. He is asking whether we can have any information, new traces about the Egyptian cults at Ephesus. Do we have new archaeological evidence?
Well, we mostly have new discussions, I would say. I mean, we still refer to the book of Günther Höbel that brought together all the material evidence of the Egyptian cults in Ephesus. But as you all know, the Egyptian cults become extremely prominent and in the early imperial period in Asia Minor and also in Ephesus, of course. So there are two aspects we're interested in. One is when we talk about burial rites and in connection with mystery cults, the Egyptian cults play a very decisive role, to my opinion. The care about the body and the promise of a more attractive afterlife than the Olympian gods can offer is one of the reasons for the success for the Egyptian cults in the Mediterranean in the imperial period. But we are mostly interested currently in the discussion about the Serapis Temple. We are working on we have been working on the Serapis Temple in the last couple of years. And I have to say the question still remains whether it is a temple for Serapis. We know that Serapis was worshipped in Ephesus. There are some indications that this temple is connected with the Serapis cult. It's on the one hand the architectural shape that gives an impression of a cave. The inside gives the impression of a cage with water installations that might remind of the Nile. So there is evidence, however, we have no epigraphic evidence. You know that the facade of the Serapis Temple is preserved to roughly around 90%. There is unfortunately no dedicatory inscription on this temple. We would love to know who this temple was dedicated to. It's temple with the tallest monolithic columns in Asia Minor. It's simply huge, but who was it dedicated to? So unfortunately, maybe having discussions about the Egyptian cults, but they are still ongoing. But for the Egyptian, the material evidence, I would still go back and refer to the publication, the book of Günther Höbel, that he published a couple of years ago. It's 1978, I guess. So this is what I can contribute to this question.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin, for this explanation. And the second question, I guess, goes to Alexandra. The question comes from Hazar Kaba. First, I'll translate into Turkish, then ask in English. Alexandra'nın sunduğu sunumunda bazı tablolar var ve bu tabloların üzerinde de yapı birimlerinde yer alan birey isimleri, birey sayıları yer almakta. Acaba bu sayılar bir fiil yapıda yaşayanların sayısı mı? Eğer öyleyse seramikten yola çıkarak bu bireylerin sayılarını hangi metodoloji kullanarak araştırmış? Bunu soruyor Hazar Bey. The question is, does individuals from your charts that you have presented indeed refer to people, for example, inhabitants of the building? If so, through which methodology do you detect individual numbers with the help of pottery?
No, I'm afraid that is a misunderstanding. I didn't make that clear probably, but I really refer to vessel individuals, so to pottery individuals, to individual vessels.
Okay, not the persons, but the pottery. No. Yeah, ware groups, you mean, family. Okay. All right. We have a last question for Alexandra. Actually, there are two questions, but they combine, I guess. It is, first I'll translate in Turkish again and then turn back to English. İki tane soru var. O iki soru da birbirine bağlı olduğu için ben birleştirmek istiyorum o soruları. Bir tanesi Efes'teki erken demir çağ yerleşimleri açısından baktığımızda tek bir yerleşim mi vardır? Eğer hani bu yerleşimlerden yola çıkarak arkeolojik malzemeyi incelediğimizde Efesos'taki yerli halk hakkında bilgi edinebiliyor muyuz? Diğer bir soru yine yerli halkla da ilgilendirdiği için birleştiriyorum. O da şu, Efes'teki demir çağ yerleşimleri ve kült faaliyetleri açısından baktığımızda acaba hani malzemeden yola çıkarak yerli ve yeni gelenler hakkında bir şeyler öğrenebilir miyiz? Yani malzemeden yola çıkarak yerliler hakkında bilgi edinebiliyor muyuz? Ya da aynı zamanda yeni gelenler hakkında bilgi edinebiliyor muyuz soruları. So, both of the questions actually needs to know whether you can distinguish from the material culture, the newcomers and local people. And additionally, they combine their questions with asking if in Ephesus there's only one early Iron Age settlement. Is there more? And in terms of identifying local and newcomers from archaeological material culture, do you have evidence in the settlements and cult activities?
So maybe I start with the question for the early Iron Age settlement, so when we're talking about early Iron Age settlement, so about the 10th to 8th century BC settlement, the only one really is on Ayasuluk, probably, so that we know about so far, and which was excavated by Mr. Büyükoğlançı, and here we don't have the final publication yet. So for this period, I really cannot say much, because my material with the Agora settlement starts in the early 7th century. The pottery material from the Koressos area goes back to the mid-8th, but it's not, it's already late, so it's not really early Iron Age. As to newcomers, as opposed to indigenous people, I must say that in my material, I don't have evidence to distinguish such levels of population. That's not possible from what I can say from my material. No, okay. Unfortunately not, no.
Okay, there are more new questions coming. I will put them on the chat box so that people listening would also read the question. Okay, the question comes to François. Could you please explain, wait a minute, yeah, could you please explain the limits of the settlement of the island peninsula in the Bronze Age? Türkçesini çevireyim. Tunç Çağı'ndaki adada ya da yarımadadaki yerleşim sınırlarını belirleyebiliyor muyuz? Açıklayabilir misiniz? Yeah, François.
So what I can say is that we just have a small part of a huge settlement. As I told before, it was a peninsula, and even from this peninsula, I would say 2/3 of the peninsula has been eroded by the sea. So what we see is only a very small part. And on the other side, on the shore, from Ormankampe, where we could not make drillings and we could not make excavations, you find on the beach, you find material. Of course, we know that the hinterland has been populated. Also, you will have a lecture from Toby Wilkinson next week, and I think he will show you that the hinterland is even densely that you have a dense population of the Middle Bronze Age and Late Bronze Age also. So the exact limits on the shore I can tell you, because we were not able to make any soundings there, but it's only a small part of a huge town or whatsoever.
Okay, François, you have more questions coming? The first one is from Archaeology Journey, the nickname. Is there any other comparable settlement like Tavşan Island except Dodekanes? Sorumuz şu, Dodekanes adalarını dışarıda tutarsak Tavşan Adası gibi karşılaştırılabilecek bir yerleşim var mıdır? Sorumuz bu. And there's another question again for you, François. I can ask that later, but let me ask it in the beginning again. According to the data we have, what is the approximate population of TA3? Elimizdeki verilere göre TA3 ait popülasyon hakkında, nüfus hakkında bilgimiz var mı? Yeah.
If you know somebody who can answer this question, I would be happy.
Yeah.
No, because as I told you,
it's not that easy. Yeah.
I told you we only have such a small glimpse on the settlement that I'm not able to tell you how much people live there during this period. And concerning the first question, well, on every island of the Dodecanese, you will find similar settlements. I have visited all the islands. There are a lot of sites which have sites which have not been excavated, even unknown sites, very similar. And even the harbor situation with two beaches, well, you find similar situations on other islands of the Dodecanese. So you have to see the Saska region as an entity.
Okay, you have one more question. Comes from Hüseyin Cevizoğlu. Can we assume the character of the settlement on the Tavşan Adası as a Cretan basis or colony in the Bronze Age? What do you think about it? Hüseyin Cevizoğlu'nun bir sorusu var. O da Tavşan Adası'nı yerleşimini baktığımızda genel özellikleri açısından bir Girit istasyonu ya da kolonisi gibi Tunç Çağı'nda düşünebilir miyiz? Ne düşünüyor François Bey diye sormuş. What do you think, François?
Yeah, thank you, Hussein. We have spoken about this question, I think, several times. So when I started in the first years, I had in my mind that we had a kind of a colony, but continuing excavating and visiting other sites, as I told you, on the islands of the Dodecanese, and coming into contact, especially with Tula Maketu, I saw finally that this Saska region is something by its own. There have been a lot of persons, I would say, a lot of immigrants from Crete and from the Cyclades everywhere on these islands, because they were in. It's like an, how could you call that? Like a Minoan koine, but I would not see Tavşan Adası nowadays as being a colony, proper colony. So I differ a little bit from the opinion of Niemeyer and so on, because I see that the region, that the local, the local core is very important.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. There's actually one more question for Alexandra, but it's I think you've already answered that. But Remzi Yağcı, who is a professor at 9 September University in Izmir, as we all know, he asks, can it be said any ethnical differences in archaic period? I think he asked it in terms of the remains from Ephesus, I guess. Soru Remzi Yağcı hocamızın sorusu, arkaik dönemde etnik farklılıklar hakkında bir şey söyleyebilir miyiz? Herhalde Efes buluntularından yola çıkarak bu sorunun cevaplandırılmasını istiyor. Alexandra, can we make that distinction?
No, we cannot in the material record, but you're probably aware of the bots and people discussion of the 1990s. And so, I mean, it's just difficult to from a methodological point of view, to identify material or potteries with the with the ethnicity of the people that use those pots. So it's just methodologically speaking, it's difficult. So I don't see any way to do this on a safe ground in my material.
Yeah, it's a very deep subject, and I think we would not have time to discuss reading ethnics through material culture. Is a totally different subject, which should be discussed in a different platform, I think. So, Alexandra, Martin, and François, thank you so much for your amazing talks. We learned so much from your talks, especially in terms of recent research, which is our main topic of the symposium. I wish we will see each other some other time, perhaps in a different webinar, sorry, but I personally would prefer in person. Thank you very much. Hocalarımıza de çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Alexandra'ya, Martin'e ve François'a bize çok değerli bilgiler sundular. Tam da bizim sempozyum temasına uygun bir şekilde son bulguları bizlerle paylaştılar. Her birine tek tek teşekkür ediyoruz. Şimdi sonuç konuşmasında sonuç değerlendirmesini yapmak üzere Profesör Doktor Gonca Şenol'u davet ediyorum. I now call Gonca Şenol, Professor Gonca Şenol. She will present the closing remarks of the day. Gonca? Mikrofonunu açman gerekiyor sanırım. Mikrofonun...
Pardon, teşekkürler. Öncelikle bu geç saate kadar bizlerle kaldıkları için tüm bu programı izleyen, bu sempozyumu izleyenlere teşekkür ediyorum ve tabii ki katılımcılara teşekkür ediyorum. First of all, I would like to thank you all for staying with us until this late hour. Perhaps in Europe it's not late as in Turkey, but anyway, thank you very much, and also for your participation, of course. Thank you very much. Değerli bilim insanları ve sevgili öğrencilerimiz, dear colleagues and dear students, Ege Üniversitesi Edebiyat Fakültesi Arkeoloji Bölümü, Klasik Arkeoloji Anabilim Dalı öğretim üyeleri ve yardımcıları tarafından düzenlenen İonia'da Yeni Arkeolojik bulguların sunulduğu Uluslararası Çevrimiçi toplantımızın ilkini tamamlamış bulunmaktayız. Oldukça verimli geçtiğine inandığım toplantımızda Smyrna, Efesos, Miletos ve Klaros'ta yapılan son çalışmalar hakkında bilgi sahibi olduk. We have completed the first international online symposium dealing with the recent archaeological research in Ionia, organized by the members of the Classical Archaeology Department of Ege University. In our meeting, which I believe to have been very productive, we learned about the recent research carried in Smyrna, Efesos, Miletos and Klaros. İlk oturumumuzda Profesör Doktor Christoph Benz ve Lisa Steinman bize Miletos'ta kamusal mekan üzerine yapılan son araştırmaları, Profesör Doktor Nuran Şahin ve Doktor Onur Zunal bir kehanet merkezi olan Klaros'ta kültün ana tanrıçadan kahin tanrıya gelişimini, Doçent Doktor Akın Ersoy ise Smyrna kenti kazılarında ele geçen son arkeolojik verileri bizimle paylaştı. In our first session, Professor Dr. Christoph Benz and Lisa Steinman gave us the latest research on public space in Miletos. Professor Dr. Nuran Şahin and Dr. Onur Zunal explained the development of the cult from the mother goddess to the Orak god in Klaros, the Orak Center. Associated Professor Dr. Akın Ersoy shared with us the latest archaeological data obtained during the excavations in Smyrna. İkinci oturumumuzda 100 yılı aşkın süredir kazı çalışmaları devam eden Efesos'ta yürütülen çalışmaları privat dozent Doktor Martin Steskal'dan ve yine Efesos'ta Tetragonos-Agora'nın altındaki ve Panayır Dağı'nın çevresindeki arkaik yerleşimlere ilişkin bilgileri Doktor Alexandra von Miller'den dinledik. Oturumun son konuşmacısı Profesör Doktor François Bertemes ise bizlere Millet Yarımadası'ndaki Bronz Çağ Limanı'nın yer aldığı Tavşan Adası ile ilgili araştırmalarını sundu. In our second session, the studies carried out in Ephesus, which has been excavated for more than a century, were presented by privat docent Dr. Martin Steskal, and we listened from Alexandra von Miller about archaic settlements in Ephesus under the Tetragonos-Agora and around Panayır Dağı. The last speaker of the session, Professor Dr. François Bertemes, presented us the research on a Bronze Age harbor, which is located on Tavşan Adası in the Miletos Peninsula. Bu toplantıya katılan meslektaşlarımıza bölgede yapmış oldukları araştırmaları bizlerle paylaştıkları için tekrar teşekkürlerimizi sunarız. 27-28 Mayıs 2021 tarihinde düzenlenecek olan ikinci toplantıda İonya bölgesindeki diğer kentlerde yapılan çalışmalar sunulacaktır. Hepinizi bu toplantıya da bekliyor ve sağlıklı günler diliyorum. We would like to thank our colleagues who participated in this meeting for sharing their research in the region with us. At the second meeting to be held on 27th and 28th May 2021, the studies carried out in other cities in the Ionia region will be presented. I await you all for this meeting and wish you healthy days. Teşekkür ederim. Thanks. Good night. İyi akşamlar.